The Swan Girl. Long, long ago, deep, very deep in the forest glade, a lake lay glistening in the sun. From the blue sky above there suddenly descended 3 swans. They were unusually beautiful, with beaks of mustard yellow, snow-white feathers and ruby red eyes. And above all, they talked in sweet human language. At last we've found a quiet place, said one with a sigh of relief. Yes, well secluded and unwatched, joined the second. Then let us change and enjoy a pleasant swim in these crystal waters, quipped the other. But alas, the 3 innocent creatures did not know that someone was spying on them. For high up in the tall tree, hidden by the thick foliage, perched a young man. A peasant, though occasionally he reveled in hunting. He had, in fact, dozed off waiting for a prey, when whispering voices woke him up. He sat with bated breath. For below on the sandy bank, he saw a strange sight. The swans cast aside their feathery robes and turned into 3 lovely damsels, one lovelier than the other, clad in beautiful costumes. Holding each other's hands, they romped into the placid water. They swam, they sang and they frolicked. What if I steal one of these soft white robes, thought the peasant. Descending from the tree, he stealthily picked up the one belonging to the prettiest of the 3 and returned to his hiding. After a while, the maidens came to look for their feathery robes and found one missing. Frightened, the first 2 put on theirs and at once turned into swans and flew away. But the third and the youngest searched for her magic robe under every bush and shrub and thicket, but in vain. Then, remembering the advice of her fairy godmother, if ever she confronts such a situation, she said in a clear loud tone, "Whosoever has stolen my swan coat, hearken and with attention note. If your age is 2 summers less than a score, come soon and tarry no more. Ere the stars twinkle in the sky, make me your wife, crown and happiness I shall bring to your life." The handsome young man pondered over his age and then climbed down faster than the most agile creature. For it was already nearing dusk and the first star might shine any moment. He knelt before the fairy maiden, took her hand in his and kissing her frail fingers said, "O beautiful maiden, with sweet fragrance laden, 2 springs hence I shall reach my score, come, let me lead you to my door." Soon they got married and dined together under the starry sky. News of the beauty of the peasant's wife spread far and wide. For no one in the land had ever seen a girl so comely and modest. The king too heard of her. He gathered his nobles and courtiers around him and said, "The fitting place for such a charming maiden is beside me and not a poor man's hut. I wish to make her my queen. But before doing so I should get rid of this young man forever." So, Larry, the peasant was at once summoned to the castle. "I hear you're a clear and brave young man," said the king. "I would like you to proceed to the land of nowhere and fetch me the no one. Remember, if you fail, you'll lose your head." Puzzled and bewildered, Larry sadly wended his way home. Fetch the no one from nowhere, what does this mean, he wondered. "Don't you worry," said his good wife Devonia, after learning the cause of the anxiety. "Be calm and go to bed. You'll surely wake up to a brighter and wiser morning." Larry indeed did get up with the solution in his mind. For during the night, in a flash he had found how to tackle the problem. He hurried to the king. The entire court waited in pin-drop silence. For they were surprised how this simple man could so soon accomplish such a bizarre task. "Your Majesty, according to your wish I visited last night the enchanting land of nowhere. Here I bring you the no one," said the peasant in a matter-of-fact manner, spreading out his empty palms. All were impressed. But the king set about finding a harder task for Larry. A month passed. One day the peasant was again summoned to the castle. "You've already proven yourself very smart. Now you must perform another deed for us. Go to the impossible mansion and fetch me the invisible man. In case you're unsuccessful, mind you, your head shall roll off your body," said the king rather sternly. The poor young man returned home with a heavy heart. This time, he thought, he is sure to lose his life. But his wife again consoled him saying, "Don't you worry. Morning is always brighter and wiser than nightfall." Waking up her husband before the first crow of the cock, Devonia said, "Without further delay, proceed in the direction the wind blows and all will be well." Then handing him a flute, she continued, "Take this, it will be of great help to you in your mission." Larry set out his long arduous journey. All day he traveled and when night fell he reached a grey gaunt castle. He badly needed a warm corner to rest. Thrice he struck the heavy iron knocker. But there was no response. Then, remembering the flute, he played on it a sad sweet strain. The door at once swung open, groaning loudly on its rusted hinges. At the far end of the hall, an old haggard woman sat by the hearth. "Ah," she exclaimed, seeing Larry at the door, "the tune you played has already conveyed to me your sentiments. You're indeed in deep trouble. But before I hear you, you must first answer my 2 questions." The old woman paused and cleared her throat. "What is it that begins where it ends and ends where it begins, and what is it that runs and runs and runs but never runs away?" The hunter thought for a while and then answered, "The first is a road and the second, your clock." "You're indeed clever, my boy, and ought to be helped. Tell me, what brings you here?" she asked in a gentle grandmotherly tone. "I'm on my way to the impossible mansion to fetch the invisible man, but know not where to go," said Larry. The old woman hobbled to the door and called into the night. "Arise, my croaking friends, arise and come hither. An urgent mission beckons you." At once in trooped a host of frogs. Big ones, small ones, round ones and square ones. "Can you tell me where to find the impossible mansion?" she asked the wee creatures. "No, we do not know, kind mistress," they replied in one croak. "But our great-great-grandfather is on his way. He might be able to assist you." Just then a loud thumping sound was heard and in hopped a large wrinkled toad. He looked almost 500 years old. "Yes, I know where lies the impossible mansion," said he. "Then lead this fine young man to it," the old woman instructed him. She filled Larry's bag with bread and cheese and wished him good luck. Into the deep dark woods they went, the toad briskly hopping and the young man trudging behind. They traveled the whole night and well into the next day. At dusk, they reached their destination. Surrounded by evergreen trees stood a strange mansion. Water, of the color of the sky, rising up and flowing down, formed its walls. Its arched ceiling was 1,000 rainbows. Sweet magical music emanated from it. Thrice stroked the toad and the young man played a lilting happy tune on his flute. Out flowed the liquid door, it turned into a wave and carried both of them into the watery abode. They were in a great hall where burned 1,000,000 candles. In the middle stood a long table, decked with sumptuous dishes. But not a soul was present there. Hungry after their tedious journey, Larry and the toad began relishing the delicious food. Suddenly they observed something most extraordinary. On the table, at one end, was a jug full to the brim with a honeyed drink. Around it. Yet, it was gradually getting empty. The toad, jumping onto the peasant's shoulder, whispered in his ear, "Look there, it is the invisible man who is enjoying his drink." "Are you the invisible man of the impossible mansion?" asked Larry hopefully. "I am," replied a wee little voice. "Will you come with me to my land?" the young man inquired. "I shall come. But you should never speak to me once you're out of this charmed place. If you do so, you'll become invisible and lose your identity. Play the magic flute in case you want to communicate and I'll read your thoughts," replied the tiny voice. Larry immediately set out on his homeward journey. The toad who had come to like him decided to accompany him to his country. The invisible man quietly followed them. Meanwhile, 2 long years had lapsed. It was the day when Devonia, Larry's wife, was to wed the king and be made a queen. For everyone had taken it granted that Larry will never return. Nobody took note of the fact that Devonia was weeping continuously. When the king was about to place the crown on her head, "Wait, your majesty," someone shouted. But who is it? Who said so? Where was he? The king and his men were puzzled. "You wanted to meet me, didn't you?" the unknown voice asked. Taken aback, the king collapsed into the throne. Soon in marched through the archways and into the decorated hall, Larry and the ancient toad. A lull from the invisible man from the impossible mansion. "Then I should at once speak to him. Otherwise, how do I know he exists?" asked the king awestruck. "But didn't you hear, a moment ago, a voice commanding you to wait?" "Well, that was the invisible being speaking to you," said Larry in an assuring tone and added, "Your Majesty, don't rush to talk with the invisible man, for if you do so, you too would become invisible." The king remained silent and pondered deeply. The young man is indeed kind and humane. He has love and respect for his sovereign. He could have turned me invisible, but instead, he cautioned me. How mean and wicked I've been towards him. A great change came over the king. Slowly rising from his seat, he said in a sober tone, "My people, first of all, I seek this young man's forgiveness, for I've done him grievous wrong. I'm indeed proud today that he is one of my subjects. There is no heir to the throne. I, therefore, crown Larry and his beautiful wife Devonia as the king and queen of the realm. As for myself, I shall retire into seclusion." For a moment the people were stunned and could not believe their ears. But then there was jubilation and the kingdom wore a festive look. "I would very much like everyone to be fed with the delicacies from the impossible mansion," thought Larry, and played on his flute. At once on the sprawling palace garden, there appeared large tables loaded with food and drink. For the invisible man had rightly read Larry's mind. All feasted and rejoiced as they had never done before. The wise toad was appointed personal advisor to the king. The invisible man returned to his enchanting mansion. But he never failed to come whenever the music of the magic flute beckoned him. And the peasant and the Swan Girl, now young rulers of the beautiful land, lived happily ever after. Thanks for listening. Please like, share and subscribe to our channel. See you with another story.